Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Afif. I am the design community manager here at ProApp, and we have. So let's talk about today's session. Okay, we have already covered various design disciplines, be it user experience, UI, user research, and many more. But for today, we are going to learn how motion design has a profound impact on the UX of digital products. And for this very interesting topic, we have a very interesting speaker with us. And if I have to describe him, untangling may be the best way to describe what Mauricio Tanon does. And he has the ability to communicate very clearly with his vast experience as a designer. And he's able to simplify otherwise very complex problems. And a little bit more about Mauricio. So he's a Brazilian based designer and art director with more than 10 years of experience in the industry. And he's an advocate of prototyping and an enemy of all static things. So if you like interactive design, interaction design, motion design, you're at the right place and you are with the right people. So Mauricio, over to you.
Great, thanks, man. Thanks for the introduction. So first thing I would like to say to you all, if you have any questions during the call, there's a tab down here, Q&A. Please put your questions in there, and in the end we'll be selecting them and answering them all, okay? Let me just start sharing. So let's start. First, welcome all that come to this talk today in a Saturday. It's not that easy, so thanks for your presence, you all. And welcome to That to Stillness, my love letter to motion and the people we design our products. Here's our agenda for today. So we'll start with why make things move. Then we'll move to when move motion your designs. The third point is fundamentals of the motion. The fourth is how to motion your design, the most technical part, when we'll see a small workshop inside of Figma. And in the end, we'll have some tips and tricks and a Q&A. Like, hey dude, who are you? Why are you talking about this thing? So, as Afif said, my name is Mauricio Tonon. I'm Brazilian designer, art director, and 3D artist living in Barcelona. I've been lucky to collaborate with some fantastic agencies and studios like the ones you can see in your screen. During this time, I've been recognized with some awards in digital field, and that led me to become a jury at awards for 3 years in a row. And now I am teaching in design lab for a year the fundamentals of UX and UI, mentoring and teaching on design lab. But I'm more a show don't tell type of guy. So here you all can see a little of my motion work, why I explain why this is important to me, why motion is important to me. So when I was a kid, I always loved like anime and sci-fi movies. When you see like some digital interfaces coming up from their arms and things like that, like really crazy things. And you can imagine how excited I was when I discovered that I could like work with design, UX, UI, and do things that are not exactly what they're doing, but helping people in their daily lives with like some nice things. But when I started working, I saw that the magical interfaces that I imagined as a kid were not really happening. Instead, everything was static and boring, a lot of presentations to do, and everything needs to be done for yesterday. So it was a little bit frustrating for me until someday someone, I can't remember who it was, I need to check this out, someone introduced me to prototyping. At the time it was 2015, if I'm not mistaken, and it was Principle for Mac, a tool that I use until today. And they taught me that I could make my designs move to simulate how the user will interact with it. At the time, it's like, my head exploded. It was so nice that I could do that without like having to bother a developer or anything like that. And it really fits the moment that I was, because I was seeing that some of my ideas were not really, let's say, seeing the daylight, because it was hard to explain without showing how the things will move, how the things will work, or sometimes people didn't see the feasibility of it. So having prototype really helped me to get estimations without spending any time from development to create an HTML prototype. And that's the reason number one of why make things move. So you can better express and sell your ideas. And only that can be useful in so many ways, like for example in a pitch, investment pitch, to show the investors of your product how your product will really work. That could be the difference between losing and winning, because it lets you explain better what you imagine in your head. And usually for a pitch you have like a super short timeline, so able to do a prototype and explain to people how things will work and not just look is really, really useful, and again can be the difference between winning and losing. You can also use to remove the communication from between things like design, development, management, showing exactly how you imagine your designs to work in the initial phase of the project, so you can discover the feasibility of it, if it's worth it to be done or not. And another point is that it also made me analyze my designs better, because when you're doing motion, it's not just form and function. You also have to think how the elements will get there, how they position themselves, how they interact with each other, how they will respond to the user, what's their purpose, and how they will behave. And that's our number 2 in our list. Motion helps you connect better with your design. And by doing that, you connect better with the people that will be interacting with your design. And that's always our goal, to connect with people, understand them, and provide the best solution that we can do. I always believe that design and motion attached to it to produce products that help guide people to achieve their goals in a specific moment, and not like giving tasks for them to accomplish. I mean, we are here to serve them basically, so let's facilitate their work, right? And I thought, what is the best way to guide someone that is alive and constantly in motion in the physical world? And my answer to that is by replicating what people are used to see in the physical world, which is exactly our number 3. Motion breaks a brain barrier. So in the real world, anything that any person needs to do involves motion. It's just how the world works. And to emphasize it, just a simple action as drinking water involves like a lot of motion. Like you have to move your arm, grab the glass or the bottle, open it, hold it, inclinate in your mouth. Drinking, there's mouth movement, and God knows what else passes in your body. But just a simple act as drinking water involves a ton of motion on it. So okay, next story, but what the hell that means? It means that the human brain processes information in movement and not static, not the opposite way. And by adding motion to your designs, you are smoothing a barrier of the adaptation from the digital world to from the physical world to the digital world, creating a seamless and easier experience. But nowadays, making an easy and frictionless experience is not enough. People want more from their brands and from their products. They want to know them, they want to trust them, and they want to connect to these brands. So here's a number 4. Motion creates wow moments that can emote and inform people. And this is way more important than you all can think. Everything is so fast and impersonal nowadays that creating a pleasant moment in the experience shows that you care. And believe me, users love way more brands that care for them. At least they show they care for them. One moment of emotion, one smile, 1 second are enough to create an emotional connection, transform a so-called user into a customer. And if you repeat it in strategic and vital moments, you get this customer and make him become loyal to you, because he wants that experience, he wants to be part of it, he wants to be with your brand. After all, you care for him. And that for any brand is gold. And finally, the number 5, among a million other reasons I could bring to you all, is motion makes your design more beautiful and exciting. It's the single best thing that you can do to elevate your designs to a more attractive level. And that means in your portfolio, in the client presentations, to the people that are interacting with your experiences you are creating. Some studies show that we have 0.05 seconds to grab someone's attention on the internet. That is like really fast. And we also know that usually the first impressions are the one that last. So using motion to surprise, instigate, and guide people in the first moment will help you land the best impression ever. That's awesome, but how we do that? So that takes to the next chapter. When motion your design. First of all, you need to understand the scenario, the context of your product and experience. What is the audience of your product? What are the goals of the product and the business? And you can achieve that answers by following these simple steps. Learn the user needs. This is really, really important. Learn about user mental modes of your product. For example, what the user expects to see and experience in your product based on like past experiences they had with other products, well, competitors or old versions of your own product. And if they don't have this type of experience before, what are the current interaction with the physical version of your product? Let's say you have designing a bank application. What are their experience inside of a bank and how it works? And what is the experience that they had in other applications? Learn about that, and you will learn if users need or not to see some motion in your designs. Second step is find the right time. Think about the moments in the human interface interaction that you can create a special moment to bring joy to the user. Like after some hard task or a long flow, what can you give to him that makes him smile? Like some kind of reward or something like that. It's really interesting to like break and play this let's say duality of giving something to the user to perform and then rewarding him, because it really creates an emotion with the brand and the user. Step 3 is don't overthinking. Thinking is great, is what makes us all humans, is what makes us great designers. But if you do it too much, if you overdo it, you can get lost because you won't take any action. And our words make of action, stop thinking. So my tip is go with your gut, your instincts, think some ideas, select the one that your gut says is right, and test it really quick. If it seems promising, go ahead, follow it, do it. If no, go to another. Again, fast. Speed is really crucial and at this stage of the ideas of discovering if motion will fit or not on your product. And don't be afraid of letting go of your ideas. Like you'll have thousands of them, I promise. Don't get attached to your ideas, okay? Please don't overdo it. Your product is not a movie or an animation. Don't put motion just for the sake of it. It needs to have an objective, a purpose, a reason to be there. Otherwise, take it out or at least simplify a lot, okay? Do the extra mile. This is a kind of hard one. Right now, most of agencies, studios, and clients, they do not prioritize motion. They don't see all the benefits of it yet, and that's why we're having this talk today. So if you want to create better experiences for the users, you'll have to advocate for it in your company or in your client, which sometimes implying work some extra time, 1 or 2 hours here and then. Not every project, not every time, just now, just in the beginning. You have one case showcasing the motion works, and that's it. You don't need more to give extra time to it, because the company will see its value and will start to integrate into the process, which is our last point. Understand the processes. What are the design process of your company or your client or your design processes? You need to understand it deeply and see where motion fits best on it. And there is really no rule, and it will vary depending on each project. Like sometimes I start thinking and testing motion in the wireframe phase, sometimes before the wireframe, just to see if it will work or not. Sometimes after the wireframe is approved, sometimes just after the UI is ready and final approved by the client. The good part of this is by understanding and knowing your process, you can think in ways to make it better, more efficient, more improve it. And when you have a more efficient process, you have more time to focus on other things, like motion, for example. So now let's jump into the fundamentals of motion. Just a quick second. So the Cambridge Dictionary says that motion is the act or process of moving, or a particular action or movement. For me, motion is life. The whole universe is in motion right now. Galaxies, planets, systems, humans, animals, plants. Even tree trunks that seems to be completely static are slowly moving. To go even further, if you get like a really good microscope, like the right equipment, and zoom into a wall, for example, a wall, completely static wall, you see that the atoms inside of this wall is moving. So why the hell your layout should be static if the whole universe is otherwise? Motion also triggers memories. It helps our brain to remember things that are dear to us, makes us connect. So that's a lot of advantage to start doing motion in your projects. In product design, motion is a storytelling medium. It builds a narrative that provides context to the user. By visibly linking screens and elements together, it provides a structural guidance. It establishes a spatial relationship between elements that help us understand the organization of an application, for example. How things are moving in there, what are the movements that the user needs to do to interact with your application. You don't need to like put an arrow on it because you can show it with motion. Phones and computers are what we call code media. And by adding motion to it, you start to bring it to life, make it alive. It looks more natural. It's the little detail that really makes the difference. And like Charles James always says, the details are not the details. They make the experience, they make the product. So let's dig in. And there's no better place to start than the Disney principles of animation. Yes, they were made based on animation movies, but they work as a Bible for motion to any designer around the world, independent of their type of animation, if it's product, if it's movie, if it's infographic or whatever. So the videos we'll see here were produced by Emmanuel Colombo. Be sure to follow him. He has some really nice content around motion on the internet. And the first principle is scratch and stretch. Scratch and stretch represent the weight of an object. It kind of gives him mass, kind of gives him physical properties inside of your UI. It shows also flexibility. In interfaces, expanding and compressing elements will give you this illusion of weight, making it more believable and natural. So the first thing that you want to achieve with motion is making it more natural for people. And basically all the principles from Disney is about that. The second principle is anticipation. Anticipation helps the viewer to prepare for what's about to happen. So for example, overstays in UI are a perfect example of that, but a simple physical example is like when someone will throw something, usually you just cut back your arm and then you throw it front. This movement to get it to the back is the anticipation. It indicates that something is happening. So it's really good to not surprise first people from nowhere, giving some movement, but make them prepare for it. The third principle is timing. Timing gives mood and character to the object. Timing and easing play an essential role in motion photograph. A lengthy, long transition makes your users wait too long, get bored by what you're doing. On the other hand, if you do something too fast, they will end up missing something that is important that you wanted to convey. So usually things happen in motion on product design around 300 milliseconds to 1 second. It's really fast, but it's not that fast. Fourth principle, slow in and slow out. So most of the objects in the real world moves with ease. That is, an object movement is not abrupt. It's not linear and like really like boring. For example, a free-falling object, like get a ball and release it, it will start slow and then will gain momentum and hit the ground and done stuff. Or for example, if you get the same ball and throw it vertically into a surface, what will happen is it will start slow, gain momentum in the end, at some point it will stop. Slowly stop. So in interfaces, easing is what you're looking for, especially ease in and ease out. By using these features, you add a realistic sense of acceleration and deceleration, again, making it more natural, more believable. Staging does exactly what it says. It puts on the stage the main elements of your layout. So staging is about where the element is placed and how it gets there. In interfaces, stages decides where the elements are placed and how they move around other objects. So for example, if you have a title that you really want people to not miss it, you can add small movements to it, small motion to it, and let things around it static. That will bring attention to the user to the focal point that we're trying to convey. Secondary action. In animation, secondary action is used to support or enhance the primary action of an object. For example, when you're walking, other parts of the body start moving by itself, like your arms start moving by itself, and your head, for example, start moving a little bit. Your arms and head are like secondary action, and your main action is the walking, your feet. In interfaces, secondary action can make primary actions more prominent. These are really useful when an element needs to give feedback for the user, for example. Therefore, all the micro interactions are based on the secondary action principle. So if you have a button, let's say an add to cart button, and when you click on it, the secondary action is a small animation happens, and it changes the word inside of the button to like something like added to the cart and a check in the end. That is the secondary action of the click. That is the primary action. So you're giving a message and a feedback automatically to the user, automatically where his focal point is. Exaggeration and appeal. Important elements in the scene must be appealing, and at the same time, specific actions can be exaggerated to gain more attention. In interfaces, essential interactions can be exaggerated to gain user attention. For example, a float button in the bottom of your app, you have like a color contrast to like separate it from the background. But if you really want people to show how important that is, you can add a small animation to it, and that is the appeal. And when you click on it, let's say it expands for the whole screen, take the whole screen. That is an exaggeration of a small element. And last principle is follow through and overlapping action. This is a little bit more complicated, but let's see if you can get to it easily. Consider like a rabbit jumping. When the rabbit starts in motion, it starts going to this direction, its ears start to go back, start off. So that's overlapping action. And when it lands, when it stops the jumping in the surface, its ears continues to moving to the front and then go back. That is follow through. In interfaces, adding movement after an action creates a sense of realism. So when animating elements, don't make them go like all at the same time. Do a little bit of easing or a little bit of delaying in the elements to make them look more natural, and don't make them stop all at once too. So these are the main principles of motion that can help you create high quality animations. I don't cover all the Disney principles because some of them don't really fit into product design, but you can really find it anywhere in Google or YouTube with a quick search. But right now, let's move to a more technical. How to motion your design. So let's talk about tools. These are a lot of tools that you can do some motion, and not even the beginning of how many exist. But as you can see, there is no real excuse to not start doing it, because it has Windows options, Mac options, paid options, free options, complex to learn ones, easy to learn ones. So it's really try to find the one that fits best in your workflow, that fits best in your design process, and start using it. Today, we will focus on the simplest and a free one, of course, so anyone can try. That is Figma. But before we jump into how to do the animations inside of Figma, let's talk about how to prepare your designs for it. I'll give some valid tips for prototyping and motion, but actually things that if you do every day will help your design process in any situation. So the first thing is organize and name your layers correctly. Here on the right side, you can see an example of how an organized and well-named file should be. I purposely cut off the components so you can see how it works, and especially because most of the prototyping tools like Principle for Mac or Flinto, they don't really look well with components. So it's always good to, a good tip is always to get your file, the screens that you will animate, and put in a separate page. Like create a prototype page and put it there and clean your file up. But I'm getting ahead to myself. First, about the naming organization. If you really do this from any project, it will really help you because it helps a lot to break communication barrier. For example, it's really easier to refer to element of design that is called carousel of articles and carousel 1 instead of group 1, 2, 3, 4, groups 5, 6, 2, 3. Like it's really hard to keep finding and looking for these things. So by naming things properly, it really helps you to see and understand your own file better and communicate it to other people better. And it's also how most of the prototyping tools work. They work based on the name of the layers to link elements between screens. So if you have a lot of elements with the same naming, it won't work. You will bring all the elements from all the screens that are inside of the prototype to that point and it will be like a complete mess. So name and organize your file. And how you do that? There's no really a right way to doing things. I suggest you find your own, but I'll share with you how I make. So I group elements and then components and then modules. So I start really small and start growing up the grouping. And I name things descriptively. So for example, a button group should contain the layers main button green background, main button text, and button icon arrow, if your icons are arrow, of course. And that's it. It's really simple, but it takes some time in the beginning to start doing it, to start adding to your process, but after you get it, it just became automatic and really, really pays off a lot. The second point you need to do is clean your file. So remove all the hidden and unnecessary layers. My rule to it is, if the user will not see it, take it off. That's another reason to like duplicate your file for the prototype. So you don't lose anything that you're having there, but for the prototype itself, clean it out. Other things you can do is like, instead of having a lot of masks with images inside of it, can you just place the image itself in there and work in the position, run corners and everything, using the crop feature of the image instead of a mask? If you can, do it. For vectors, for example, if you're using the Boolean group feature like union or subtract, the ones that are on the top of Figma, do the union, do the subtract, but for the prototype, flatten the vector. So there is a last option in there that you can flatten the vector to just one icon. Will be like, let's say you have a siren icon that has 3 or 4 lines. It's 4 different elements that you have to consider. If you're not animating it inside of the prototype, just flatten it down so it keeps simple. You have less files to work on, and always detach components before you move into prototype. And the third tip is plan your animation. First, create the states of your animation in frame sequence, so you have a clear vision of what is moving to where it's going, how it's going. And don't worry, while you are animating, you'll probably change things, but it's okay. It's good to have something to start. And now that prepared, let's jump into a quick work session in Figma. This is not intended to be a tutorial, but just to explain in a practical way some tips and tricks how to do it. So let me share my screen again here. Okay, so this is the prototype I will be showing you guys today. It has this entry animation coming in. You can scroll between cards. It has a small over element here that I know it never happens on mobile. I'm just showcasing for the sake of this call. And we also have this interaction of the menu. So things coming out and things coming in. How to do this type of things? First, animation in Figma is really easy to do. All you need to do is, for example, you have your home design final is all there. You need to animate it. What you do? You duplicate this home design, and I named the first one zero state. Zero state contains every element on your screen, but they are a little bit offset and with zero opacity. So the menu down here, button navigation, it has zero opacity and is offset down. The header is, this header here is moved up here, so it has zero opacity. The elements inside has zero opacity, and they are offset in terms of they're not in the same position. They down or up a little bit, and that's what creates this movement. After having elements placed in both screens, all you need to do is move to prototype. I'll do it again. Select the plus, link to the other screen. And here on animation, instead of instant, you go to smart animate. And instead of is out, you do is in and is out. And let's move this. Let's just show how fast it will happen with 300 milliseconds. Like it's really fast, you can see anything happening. So let's round this up. Wait. And let's try it again. Now you can see things more naturally, more easy to understand. To do a over, for example, I just duplicated again the page here, and all I change in this page is I add a shadow, I slowly move it up and slowly create an angle and increase the size of this icon. So you see here the results, and that's it. But as you guys can see, things are kind of overlapping in the animation. So I will teach you another trick. The other trick is to create transitional screens. So from home to menu, that before I had directly, they're linking one to the other, now I have a transition screen. That is basically a screen that has all the elements of the home and all the elements of menu here, but already prepared for the animation, already offset it. So here's the whole menu icons thing. Let me see if I can show you guys. So all the menu icons are here too, and alongside with the home elements. So the first thing is create a transition, and to create a even more smooth transition animation, offset more the elements. So instead of just moving them down exactly as they are here, I give them more space. That will make Figma itself calculate for you the distance and make a smooth animation. So let's show you how this will work. So okay, you see that here elements are a little bit more offset, so things are not coming into the same time. And now to the menu, you have a clean thing that has all the elements coming in and the same thing going out. So see, here's the principles applied, not everything coming out at the same time. They come out one by one and fit into the screen. So that's a really simple part of the Figma, and let's jump into the presentation again. Just a second. Okay. So tips and tricks. I hope you like the Figma example and are more interested in motion and product design. But right now I'll give you some practical tips to help you do better designs and use motion in your workflow. And the first tip is not really about design, it's about you. Take care of yourself as a person. That means that if you need help in something, ask for it. If it's in the work, ask for your boss, ask for the HR, say what your problem is and why you need help, reach them out. If it's outside to work, reach a friend, reach a family member, anyone. The important thing is to take care of yourself, because there is no work in the world that is worth your mental and physical health. That's just not. So, and what that also brings to the design as advantages, if you are better with yourself, if you're feeling better, you'll produce more and better results. It's just how the body works. The second point is hydration. So most of humans don't drink enough water. That's crazy. But what does it have to do with design, may I ask? Well, everything, because water is the fuel of your body and brain. It brings oxygen to your cells, which means that your whole body and your whole brain and all the small cells inside of it needs this oxygen that comes inside of this water to work and perform better. So just grab a 1 liter bottle or a glass or whatever and keep it around you while you're working. When you finish a task, take a sip, create this habit. It will really, really help you. The third tip is meditate. Another simple practice that will help you grow as a designer also. And you don't need to have a paid app for it. YouTube has tons of meditation types. You can do seated down ones or stand up ones or lay down ones, or focus on visualization, focus on the breath. There's an infinite amount. Go there and find one that fits you, that is easy for you. And what is the benefit for it as a designer? Meditation teaches you how to stay in the moment and detach from your own mind, your own ideas, which allows you to, as a designer, clearly evaluate problems without having your mind, your ego involved on this. And it also rapidly gives you answers and practical solutions for your design problems. And the last tip, this is completely focused on design, create and practicing a design memory. What it will do, it will allow you to do things faster and more effectively. They will give you the extra time to start applying motion in your designs, for example. Your design memory, what it is what your brain does kind of automatically without requesting effort and energy from you. A small tasks that you can train your brain to do it for you automatically. So, for example, what kind of icon set or icon style I should use in this project? What type of buttons should I use? Rounded corners, sharp corners, full circles, stroke ones. What typography combinations fit best in this project? What colors combinations fit best on this project? So these are small things that you can train your brain to do it for you, and you will do it automatically. It will save you a lot of time. And how to do it? It's really simple. While you're designing, take written notes about your decisions. So you decided that you'll go use a stroked icon set to this project. Go down and write down why you're doing it and what is the goal, what is the objective to do it, what you're trying to achieve by doing it. Read it out loud once, and that's it. Repeat it for all the important and critical decisions in your project. And after doing for 2 or 3 projects, your brain already starts to pick it up, and you'll see how fast you can start doing things. It's almost magical. You open Figma and start doing things directly, because you take a look on the brand of your client and your brain calculates things for you. That's really nice and really worth it. It is one more thing to add to your design process, yes, but it pays off enormously. And with that, we arrive at the end of this talk. I hope I have planted the seed of motion in each one of you, and you all can become advocates of more interactive, exciting, and effective digital experiences. Thank you all so much.
Thanks a lot, Mauricio. I think this one was really interactive, as you mentioned, and I really loved the tips that you had lined up for everyone. While we are all focused at what we need to do in terms of design, many of us tend to forget that we are human after all, and we need to take care of ourselves as well. So yeah, let's dive into the questions. We have a couple of them with us. Okay, if you have questions in your mind, if you have anything for Mauricio to answer, make sure to note them down and write it down in the Q&A section right now itself, so that I can ask them on your behalf. All right, so let's dive into the questions. Okay, Santosh asks, very common question: what tools do you use? Personally, what tools do you prefer in terms of motion design? Mauricio, you are on mute just right now.
Sorry. Personally, I use Figma a lot, so creating this example that I just showed you guys. And I also use for more complex animations Principle for Mac, because it's really easy, really fast to learn it. And I'm trying to dig into Webflow because it's free and you can do a lot of really, really nice things in there. Right now, like, I'm facing a problem because I'm just with a PC. I don't have a Mac anymore, so I can use Principle for Mac. I use my girlfriend's MacBook to do the animations when I need it. So I just do in Figma, but usually these are the tools. I also recommend to try ProApp. It's a really good one that you can really dive into create complex animations, motion systems even. So ProApp is also a really good one. And Framer also has some really nice interaction features, like you can use your phone access to grab audio or take pictures directly from it. So it's really, really interesting.
All right. Okay, so following up, you mentioned about the tools that you use, but what resources would you suggest for anyone who is just getting started?
I think the first thing is really understand motion inside of product design, especially. And for that, YouTube will be your best friend. It has a lot of resources in there, because first you need to understand how motion works and then apply it to your design process. And there's no really one way to do it. That is the thing. That is why it's so hard like to suggest one path, because each person kind of goes and reacts better to different tools, different processes, different ideas. But understanding the principles of motion, like the Disney principles, studying the material design links for animation also helps a lot. Apple also has some nice things to say about motion. And for me, basically is start doing. Get inside of Figma itself, start doing it today, a prototype, start moving things around, see if you like it or not. Figma Learning, for example, has a lot of prototyping tools, and you can start experimenting. I think the best way to learn is to experiment in motion, because you'll see how things will happen and start to see where are flaws and where are strong points, so you can go search, because there's an infinite amount of things to search. But if you kind of know what type of things you're liking to do and what you need to improve, it will be easier to give you that. So start doing it and use YouTube as your friend. It will really help you.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, we have a motion design course with ProApp as well. So you can start off with that. You can learn the basic principles and concepts that you have. So I'll just quickly post a link here, and you can install ProApp if you haven't already, and get started with that. All right, moving on to our next question. Okay, here's a use case. I have started my first job as a graphic designer after tomorrow, and in my interview they asked me a lot of questions about motion design, and I don't know much about motion, but I have agreed to take the job. So Mauricio, can you tell me what are the basic things I should learn as a complete beginner in After Effects?
So if you're going to use After Effects, that's kind of tough, because like I just know 3% of After Effects. I know exactly just what I need to do inside to animate my interfaces, nothing else. So really focus about understanding the UI, how it works, the timeline, and working with keyframes. That's the basic of it, because on After Effects you have elements in there, you have the keyframes set into position, scale, opacity, rotation, whatever elements of your whatever assets of your element, and you just move it in the timeline, and like if you make it bigger, you create another keyframe. That's the basic functionality of After Effects. So if you really understand how keyframes work, how the timeline works, you're like 50% of the job is done. So focus on that, and it will really help you to learn the basics. Learn the interface basics and this keyframes and timeline, and it will be good to start for sure.
All right. Okay, so the next question is by Ajit. He asks, how do you generate new ideas for your animation?
So for a long time, especially in the beginning, I was just kind of copying what I see in the digital world of other people are doing and kind of things. But for like 2 or 3 years now, I'm really trying to not see any motion related reference before I start my motion, because I think there is a lot of things that we can learn from the world around us. For example, last year I did a project that was a super premium and super luxury app, and I need to convey this sense inside of motion. And when I find the perfect reference for it, it was in a ballet dance video on YouTube. How people move their bodies. That was what gave me inspiration to like reply that and apply into my work. So it's really about paying attention to things around you. Like a movie, you see some awesome things that you can like replicate inside of your app. So basically, this is how I get ideas, like really paying attention, thinking in motion outside of work sometimes, like, oh, I can use this type of movement to convey something and test these things. This is how I've been doing. But in the beginning, it was like just going to dribble, checking out other people, what they're doing, and try to replicate it.
All right, that's great. Okay, the next question, Bisharat Iqbal asks, can I deep dive into motion design for user interface, or do I only learn basics for UI design?
You can deep dive into motion design for interfaces without necessarily being a UI designer yourself. I suggest you learn the UI basics because it'll give you knowledge and vocabulary to talk with the designers, but you can completely focus just on, like, I know a lot of companies is really growing that they have like UI motion positions. So the person is just responsible for the motions, the designs came to them, and they just specialize in animating them in the best way possible. So they don't really design anything, they just animate UIs. So it is definitely possible. It's a position that already exists and people are paying you money for it. So if you want it, go ahead.
Right. Okay, so Jeff has a question for you. The Figma prototype that you had to share. Figma has a motion plugin. Were you using that in your demo? And if not, can you comment on the base features of animation in Figma versus the motion plugin?
I tried 5 different motion plugins inside of Figma. They all look shit. They all terrible. So I don't recommend any plugin right now for Figma. You can download the plugins that link Figma with other apps like Flinto, Framer, ProApp, for example. That you should do because it helps you to transfer your files to the specific prototyping tool. But inside of Figma, I'll go with the native one. I think it's the best. And it's really understanding the part of the Smart Animate feature that I showed you guys into the Figma file. That is what makes you link elements between 2 different screens. And all you need to do is have 2 screens, the same element in both screens with different aspects, size, opacity, or whatever. Figma will do the rest for you.
Okay. Jeff, if you liked motion plugin, Mauricio might second to that. So I think I hope his answer helped you. Okay, so the next question is about handing off animated assets. So how do you hand off animated assets to developers?
that's kind of complicated because not all developers are familiarized with it. So there's two ways that I do it usually. I always start a project talking to the development team that will take care of the development of the project that will be working. So I will ask them like, okay, what you guys need from motion perspective. Can I just send a video example, or can I just paste the CSS of the code and things like that? So most of prototyping tools, you can export the HTML or the CSS of the animation. You can just share that to the developers, but I also recommend that you always generate a video with the exact timings to showcase how it will work. So they have like the values and how they work and an example of how it should work. It will really facilitate to bring things together. But it really depends on how much the developer is willing to do the animations for the project or not. So it's a really personal thing.
So we also have a follow-up question, like don't they find it hard to code these complex animations?
It depends on the level of the developer. Like I know developers that just take a look on my screen, like I literally just show the animation on my screen, he just turned to the other side and start coding like this. He doesn't need any values, he doesn't need anything. Others, like I can deliver everything to them and they like don't do it. They just don't do it. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the, because motion is about having the mindset of how it will work. If you have that mindset inside of you, it will be easier, but it is not all developers that had that, so it's something that gets out of our control. But even in a project that you're working like that, you can, for example, use the Figma motion to get approval for a client or to get the team more excited, and even like to convince the developers that they should start looking into it. Other tactic when the developers don't use it, don't usually do animations, is you can do in After Effects the Lottie file animations. There is simple animations that you can generate a Lottie file and send to them, and they just apply directly to the design without having to do much anything. So that's another tip.
All right. Okay, so let's take one last question. Saifullah asks that can we save the Figma animation in GIF or video format?
Right now, no. Maybe it has a plugin for it. I have to search it about it, but right now it's just finding a third partner plugin that can record your screen. But what I usually like to do is create the Figma prototype and land my cell phone in the hand of the client or in the hand of my boss, and I test yourself. So it will do on the phone itself. It really changes the perspective and everything. It really makes it more believable. It really has a great impact to having the device, even for desktop, like just letting the person interact with your prototype is really beneficial.
All right. Okay, then that's about it. We will that was it for the questions that we had, and for everyone who joined, thanks a lot for joining in on a Saturday evening here, at least in India. And for Mauricio, thanks a lot for the session. I think it was really helpful and really insightful for everyone who's just starting off and wanted to get an insight of how motion design works. So thanks a lot for that. And do you have any last words for these attendees?
Yeah, like if you got excited, start doing it. Start like having half an hour a day and doing something really simple. In 1 month, you will see that you will grow a lot and start making really nice things. And yes, please connect on LinkedIn with me. If you have any questions, throw it there. I love to chat with people. I'm super open to it. If you need anything, just reach me out on LinkedIn. And I hope you get all excited and could learn something from this. And let's keep doing it.
That's great. Absolutely. If you have any questions, if any questions were left out, you can always reach out to Mauricio on his LinkedIn, or you can reach out to us and we will ask him on your behalf. And for our next workshop, we have a session lined up about the non-design skills that every designer needs in 2022. and you can enroll in the workshop here. And thanks a lot for joining in. I hope you have a great weekend ahead, and yeah, good night.
Bye.